normal thing to do is to go out and trawl the literature and find out all of that information. Well, and the response was, well, we'd love to capture your views, as if this was not going to be an evidence-based thing. It was just going to kind of go, what's your opinion on highly protected marine reserves? And it leads me to suspect that the British government is not entirely pure in its intentions for this report, that they might want something which is going to support the view that we don't really need very many of them. And so, good evidence is very important. There are sources out there. I can send you some papers, but there are good websites. PISCO, for example, based out of Oregon State University, piscoweb.org. So PISCO web.org, and they've got some very good materials for talking to people about the benefits of marine protected areas that are highly protected. Yeah.
My name is Dean Calder. I'm a professor in the College of Marine Science. I'm a geochemist, by the way. Question: two things I didn't see in your talk is natural climate variability. Certain geotechnical reasons are things on the west coast, but we never hear about multi-decadal scale variability reef fish. And the second thing is aspects of terrestrial conservation where they have corridors of connectivity. I didn't see that really directly in association with MPAs.
Yeah, climate variability, long-term cycles, and connectivity of marine protected areas across ocean space. So the thing is that any protection will function in a matrix of natural environmental variability and long-term cycles. And one of the things that is a good reason that you want to raise the abundance of life in the sea is those kind of long-term decadal cycles. And so, when you're down in a trough, you don't want to be so far down that your populations are at the point of being eliminated by the combination of adverse environmental conditions and adverse exploitation pressure. So by raising the abundance, there's some buffering capacity in there, and there's populations that can come back from more than just zero or remnants of the population. So it's a good thing to have a functioning protected area network which is building up life in systems that are variable like this. And those functioning protected area networks do have to be interconnected in space. And there's a lot of concern over whether protected areas might not work as well under future conditions or whether they might work better under future conditions. Well, the answer is we don't know. But if we protect a lot of different places and we protect a large enough area of the sea, then we build a portfolio of protection, which is hopefully going to work in the same way that an investor's portfolio will, which will be to generate net benefits whatever the conditions are that are prevailing around it.
We met yesterday at Marine Science, and we talked a lot about protection. We have today's how important that is, and I was wondering if you could mention how you go about that in international waters and the open ocean, and in particular, how is that changing technology satellites?
Right. So how do you go about protecting areas away from the coast, so high seas areas, etc.? The answer is it's very much harder than in the coast. If it's hard enough here, and if Billy Causy's got his work cut out in the Keys and around Florida, trying to establish protected areas that work well, the challenge is multiplied when you get into offshore waters, because we don't have the legal framework that allows us to create protected areas very easily. What we do have are international bodies called regional fisheries management organizations in some parts of the high seas. And in those parts of the high seas, they have the ability to create fishery closures. So, they can create no-take areas in the high seas by implementing these fishery closures. And there are some of them which are doing this in order to respond to calls from the United Nations for greater protection of bottom habitat. So the Northeast Atlantic Fisheries Commission has created a number of closed areas there. The North Atlantic Fisheries Organization in the western part of the Atlantic is doing it off the North American coast. There's one in the South Atlantic. So there are some protection protections that are being put in place, but they're very much built around fisheries regimes rather than around conservation. There is the only body I'm aware of which has a mandate for conservation on the high seas is CAMLR in the Antarctic, the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. Yes, over here.
What about requiring that all the fishing construct and then making it transparent what's taken to ICs and beyond, and then adding in the economic evaluation of what the true cost of that fishing is, so that at some point if there is any accounting that's brought to that, there might be some way to make economic argument that the true cost is actually that you're losing the carbon cycle value of those fish, et cetera, et cetera. Shed light on topics.
So the point made is that the true costs of exploiting these areas are not really being accounted for because the value of fish in the water and functioning to promote ecosystem processes such as carbon uptake and cycling, etc., may be much greater than their value as commodities. That's absolutely true, and I think the problem is there's been a very well-known study of the deep-sea bottom trawling industry, which says that the only reason it's still viable is because of fuel subsidies. And if you withdrew those fuel subsidies, there would be no deep-sea bottom trawl industry because they couldn't make a living. And so we're artificially propping up something which is deeply destructive, reckless, and ultimately undermining the long-term future of the deep ocean and future generations' opportunities from the deep ocean. So it is a very serious problem, and I think we need to throw everything at it to solve it.
Peter Benson, oceanographer, previous slide. I wonder if you're one of the largest marine protected areas in the world is the northwest Hawaiian Islands. And I wonder if you had any data about how successful that's been. And the other part of it is at least some data at least there to indicate that the drift nets from the Japanese fishing fleet had pretty much wiped out the corals in many of these areas. And are there any efforts you're aware of to actually remove it so that the reef systems can actually recover?
Well, there's a lot of that going on. The national wildlife, the natural monument up there undertake regular removals of fishing gear, which is floated onto the reefs in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. When the thing about the Northwest Hawaiian Islands is that they were in pretty good condition to begin with. And so if you establish a protected area, it's not about recovery, it's about maintenance in those really good places. And so far as I'm aware, it's doing a really good job of keeping it in a great condition. What the downside is that a tiny fraction of the main Hawaiian Islands is given the same level of high protection. And I think there's a lot of concern that, it's out there where nobody's really using it that's getting protected, as opposed to the areas where people in their everyday lives could come face to face with incredible abundances of fish if we were to set up the right kind of protected areas in local waters. So I'd love to see the idea expanded into the main Hawaiian Islands and protection given to the high degree that the Northwest Hawaiian Islands is benefiting from.
Yeah, Professor, we met earlier. My son he's 20, and I told him I was coming to listen to you, and he was very excited. And his question, you probably can't answer that. There's lots of different countries around the world, lots of different things, but he's going shopping this afternoon to get ready for when his father comes back home. And he was saying, well, Dad, how the hell am I supposed to believe what's on a can, sustainable this, sustainable that? Is there any reasonably good website or book that young people could look at and say, look, this isn't something we should eat? Because part of what you're doing, obviously, is on the cold face of prevention. But what can we do when we're going to a supermarket? That's maybe a really tough question, but
It is a tough question. The answer is complicated because you need to know quite a lot about fish and how it's caught. So the same fish can be caught using two different methods which have utterly different outcomes. An example is mahi-mahi. If you catch a mahi-mahi using long lines, you catch enormous quantities of everything else. And there's a case from Central America, Costa Rica, where to catch 211 mahi-mahi, we caught over 460 olive ridley turtles and more than 200 loggerheads and 20 green turtles and sunfish, sharks, etc., etc. So it's an appalling fishery. But in the Hawaiian Islands, they catch it by trolling, and it's very selective, and intrinsically, the mahi-mahi is a good fish to eat because it lives fast, grows big, dies young, and breeds young. So you have a species that has the characteristics for a good fishery being caught with a very bad fishery. And to tell the difference between the two is nigh on impossible because the information is not on the packaging in most cases. The best available information is from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and if your son goes on the website there and looks at their seafood watch card, he will get boiled down into a nutshell a kind of accounting of how good a fish is to eat in terms of its environmental sustainability. And you do also have to ask people in the shops, people in the restaurants, how was this fish caught, in order to make your final decision.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Let's thank our speaker one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and I hope you're able to enjoy the rest of the Blue Ocean Film Festival.
Thank you.